We'll do it again for those folks, those fine folks who like the Twitter space. Let's see
You
here.
haven't had the space for a while, right,
I know.
Tyler?
I did. I was missing a cable, and then I bought a cable, and then it's not an official Apple cable, and so let's see what my phone does today when I plug it in. My phone doesn't want to use Apple. They've got their digital rights management game that they have with their cables, and if you don't buy their cables, then the phone doesn't
Yeah,
work.
you have to order the original one.
They are against fake goods.
So let's start the Twitter space. And while I'm getting the Twitter space started, what other? I guess we should do
Ukraine?
Ukraine. Yes. So has
Hey
anyone seen?
Tyler,
Yes.
are you guys seeing the news out of New York?
With the yeah, we could do that one.
Family, yeah.
Yeah.
Potential terrorist.
What's the latest?
Ned, yeah, Neda, you can
I'm
They're
direct.
saying
I'm just reading
15.
everything right now. I'm not there right now, unfortunately, but all my friends are. So I just found out about 10 minutes ago. Apparently, there was an explosion in the Brooklyn R train downtown,
Right.
and multiple shootings as well. So I mean, information is coming in right now. Somebody apparently with a orange vest, jacket, and a gas mask, and I mean it's brand new. It just happened a few minutes ago.
Yeah. And so there was what I read was there were so far 5 casualties, and my thinking is
15 wounded, 5 shot.
I
13
yeah.
heard
was
five
shot.
injured. Did you see casualties?
Not death. No deaths yet.
13
Not that. Oh,
injured, and no deaths yet. But Neda,
So the
I didn't
guys
see
who
any
I,
explosion.
I'm
Yeah.
forgive me for assuming that this is a guy, and further forgive me for assuming he's an idiot. Because if you have a loaded gun in New York City in the subway and you can't manage to do anything other than injure people, you're an idiot. So I can save us all a whole lot of head scratching. This person is inept and incapable and is frustrated and is an idiot. And I, I'm not. I personally am not interested in trying to figure out why idiots do things. I've kind of given up on that game. So um, it kind of reduces the intensity of it, and I don't think anyone should be. I guess it's worth analyzing why anyone would flip a switch like that. It's New Yorkers. I'll tell you this for the non-Americans in the room. This is not going to be much of a speed bump for New Yorkers. Some weird person flipping their, you know, losing their mind in the subway, and this is not like September 11th or anything like that. September 11th, it takes a lot to really hit at the heart of New Yorkers. They're incredibly resilient, thick-skinned people. Taking down the Twin Towers, yeah, that holy shit that was a stake in the heart of New Yorkers. This thing, people are going to forget about this by next week in New York. So
I will say this though. I mean, again, I'm not in New York right now, but I am a New Yorker, and I was there for 9/11. I lived close to, the incident, and uh, it's one of our biggest fears always that something would go down in the trains and the subways. And we were all just kind of, happily surprised that nothing had happened yet in the subways. And even though there's been, unbelievable, tremendous crime in New York right now, and people aren't safe and all sorts of craziness. I mean, if it was like every single week somebody was getting pushed in the tracks, and we're all, as New Yorkers, how to stand back, not to stand um, next to the tracks or anything. But it's always been one of our biggest fears. And for people who lived there during 9/11, it's literally, it's still, even though all these years has passed by, it's an open wound that is a scratch the minute something happens, or any kind of, I mean, just yesterday there was some kind of a manhole explosion, and to see people running, and just to see the fear in them in Times Square, until people figure out what it is and, no, it's not going to be at something at that level. But the minute someone wrote explosion and now hashtag New York City explosion
Right.
under subway tracks goes on,
Right.
it's going to be a lot of fearful people. A lot of people are already talking about they don't want to go to work. They don't want to step outside. So they're scared because they
Yeah.
don't know what it is yet.
I think they're gonna. My point is, I think they're gonna be scared for about a day, and then realize not even nobody died, and that's gonna. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's.
that's true. I mean, after 9/11, it's going to take a lot more to really move New Yorkers.
That's my point. Thank you for framing it that way.
Yeah.
That's
But do you know?
It's the tail of
Do
rush
you
hour,
know
so
it is
people
this?
will be
How do
pissed
you
about
know?
that.
well, more people die, in random shit you never hear about in New York every day. More people die of food poisoning every day in New York than what this idiot man, didn't manage to accomplish. So that's my point.
How do you know? How do you know that it is a terrorism? That they didn't say anything. That they are saying. Well, at least the news I saw says
No,
that
I'm
it
not
has been
pretending.
multiple shooting.
I'm not pretending to.
Merci,
I don't. I don't.
merci. I'm
There's only
sorry.
one thing I do know, and that this person is a freaking idiot. That's all. That's the only thing that is known.
Yeah,
With
because
regard to
they think.
Messi's question, Messi, that they're reporting that there are undetonated devices found in the subway station, several. So that's from the fire department in New York.
Yeah, but okay. So, but it could be. I'm just trying to, see that they haven't, like, as a police department, they haven't declared that's a terrorism thing, because sometimes shootings happen a lot in the U.S. So it could be a number of things. That's all.
Well, I would say that when specifically when you have undetonated devices, that's pretty close to terrorism. Now, terrorism is domestic and terrorism is international. But specifically, when you have unexploded devices, period, that's terrorism.
Okay, so let me just do a little search and see what's coming up. So, New York Post out of New York headline says, um, this is, I guess, really breaking news because a lot of what I'm seeing isn't uh, even related to this yet. So I have to do a recent search for things in the past hour about New York Brooklyn shooting. Several people shot at New York subway station. The New York Times, citing a spokesperson for the New York Police Department, said officers were called to the 36th Street subway station in Greenwood, Brooklyn. I'm reading this from The Guardian, by the way. And 13 people were injured following a shooting on a subway platform in New York City on Tuesday morning, authorities said, adding that several undetonated devices were found. Police later said none were active explosive devices. As I said, idiot. And good,
Scary.
good, good, good that this person's an idiot. Good that only an idiot would do something like this. We don't want smart people doing shit like that. That's when things get very problematic. A suspect described as a black man wearing a gas mask and an orange construction mask fled the scene. Okay, well, that doesn't. He's just a suspect. It doesn't mean that's who did it. And although it's a little peculiar that he was wearing a gas mask. A New York Fire Department spokesperson told The Guardian that at about 8:30 a.m., firefighters responded to a report of smoke coming from the D, N, and R lines at the 36th Street station in Sunset Park in Brooklyn. Firefighters arrived to find multiple people shot and several undetonated devices. Now, my dear best buddy, Jason Calacanis, his brother happens to work for the New York City Fire Department and is very likely based in Brooklyn because that's where they're from. And so I'll be interested to hear what, no doubt, Jason's already called Josh. What time is it in the U.S.? They're waking up there? Yeah. So Jason's probably on the phone with Josh. I'll probably ping Jason here in the next few minutes to get Josh's inside scoop on what's going down there. Being a New York City Fire Department person of many, 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 many years, even before 9/11, and being, from Brooklyn. So the spokesperson said 13 people had been injured, but stopped short of saying exactly how many had been shot. A spokesperson for the New York Police Department confirmed to The Guardian that multiple people were shot but could not say exactly how many or their condition. Officers were searching for the suspect. The police spokesperson said the suspect was about 5 foot 5 inch and about 180 pounds. Okay, so that's a pretty short, stout individual. Doing the calculations into metric, that's about 80 kilograms and about, what is that in 5 foot 5 inch in centimeters?
Tyler, I just sent you a link to the video.
It's a
From this woman.
165 centimeters and 80 kilograms. So it's like I said, kind of short and stout. Authorities, so they weren't fleet on their feet. Let's put it that way, running away from the scene. Authorities were expected to release more information from the 72nd Police Precinct in Brooklyn later. Police asked witnesses with any information to call 1-800-577-TIPS. A tweet from the New York Police Department said, due to an investigation, avoid the area of 36th Street and 4th Avenue area in Brooklyn. Expect emergency vehicles and delays, blah, blah, blah.
So Tyler, this is
Yeah,
Ken. So I am from Brooklyn, okay,
there you go.
as you know, okay. And I have a mixed feeling on this. I'm first sympathizing this information because I live on the West Coast now. It's 7 a.m. I didn't even know about the story until I turned on tech news, like literally. Um, I would say this. This is the first time, and I'm pretty old at this point. This is the first, even if I went back to my father's day, because I would have heard stories from my dad. This is the first time a particular situation like this has ever happened in New York City history. So this is different than someone getting pushed in front of a train. Okay, we're kind of, I don't want to say you're used to that, but you've heard stories like that. You hear people about either jumping or being pushed. So you kind of learn when you're traveling the trains, it's really not a good idea. And I was always very careful not to stand too close to the track, to always be looking over my shoulder, to be conscious of your environment and all of that. Um, this is this I think will not be 9/11, but I think this will hit New Yorkers a little bit differently, but just for a while. Um, what I suspect will happen, and ridership's already down because people stopped going into work. Now there's been a lot of pressure to get people to go back to work. I'm sure people are calling their offices and their bosses to say, "Hey, I want to stay home for a couple of days and work from home." And I think you'll see some of that. But if people have to go somewhere and they need to use the trains, ultimately they will use the trains, but most people use it for commuting to work. So we'll see that. That's where I think the delta might be.
Hmm.
Um, but that is I know that's the Fourth Avenue line in Brooklyn, and that's a really important line. And if they have to shut down the entire line, it's not that you just shut down that one subway stop. I mean, that's like everything from
From
probably
Brooklyn to Queens. It's the R
well,
train, Ken.
well, oh yeah, yeah. Well, if you, yeah, all the way to Queens, but
Manhattan.
but most people in Brooklyn will use that to go from maybe like the south end would be like Bay Ridge, and they would go, I think this went through Sunset Park, Park Slope, and then it's going to go into downtown Brooklyn, and then some of them will then transfer. They'll either transfer Atlantic Avenue or something, but a lot of them, and I think one of them might go right into Manhattan. So, because they've changed the names of the trains, because the D line was never on Fourth Avenue when I lived there, so that's new. The D line was somewhere else in Brooklyn. Um, so yeah, so I mean it's an important train line for that section of Brooklyn. So
I mean, like Ken said, I mean, this has always been the biggest. I mean, I was on the subway several times every single day, for many, many years. It's the biggest fear that we always had. What if something happens? We all, even in groups and settings, we would all kind of have our exit plan that in case something happens, whether it was some kind of a terrorist attack, especially after 9/11, but also, if there was a chemical gas attack, or, how, if we're going to get stuck in between the stations, what we're going to do, how we're going to get out. I mean, it's just, and we were always talked and surprised and impressed that nothing had happened yet, as crazy and chaotic as, I think it's about an average of 2 million riders a day on those trains. So everybody was just constantly surprised that nothing had happened, assumed that maybe there was some good intelligence happening, and that, that we're semi-safe, and that kind of the bigger stories, maybe not so much as far as the crime that goes on daily over there, but semi-safe as, as far as the bigger news goes. So for something like this to happen, if, there's explosions now, and unexploded devices, being found. And just yesterday, having that explosion at the manhole, whatever it was, a lot of people already were talking if it really was a manhole explosion, or were they covering up for something else that maybe happened underground. So this to happen one day after, I mean, there's going to be a lot of chaos there for a while. And yes, they're New Yorkers, they'll get over it. And, they've been through a lot, but it's the biggest fear coming to fruition,
and
I,
and,
unfortunately.
the,
I don't
and
know. Oh,
I know. I would just add, by the way, this. When I lived there before 9/11. So, but post 9/11, I think Ned is right, because I know that they had drills to deal with. They were concerned about. And it's interesting that we've been talking about sarin gas over in Ukraine. That was their biggest fear, because I think there was maybe even a situation in Japan or something at one point. They were concerned about somebody releasing poison gas on the train, and
Oh,
they
they
actually
did
ran
actually.
drills
The
Yeah,
the
for
saline
that.
yeah.
gas in Japan Tokyo subway, hibiya
right.
line.
Yeah,
So
Falun Gong and ricin.
And
so
Ken, you're originally from, I think, Jersey, if I'm not mistaken.
no,
Our
Brooklyn,
biggest fear.
Brooklyn. I'm from Canarsie. I'm
Oh,
from
I thought
Brooklyn.
I thought you were living in Jersey now. My mistake.
No,
Sorry.
no, I'm
But
living in Las Vegas now.
how dare you?
our,
So
our big
I don't
our
know if
biggest
this is
fear
of
was not
any.
just the subways, but it was always two things. It was always the subway systems, and it was the Midtown Tunnel, which is the tunnel that goes underwater that connects New York City to New Jersey. And that's a long tunnel, and we always had those two things, in the back of our heads. And every single time, even before 9/11, every time we drive through the tunnel, we'd say, okay, let's just quickly get under it, because you never knew if something was going to happen, if it was going to implode, or, terrorism. There was always some kind of a fear based on the Midtown Tunnel and the New York City subways.
I don't know if
I
this
was
is
always
any
more
comfort
concerned driving
today,
through the
but
tunnel than taking the trains through the tunnel, because I was always worried that you drive through the tunnel and there's traffic, and then you're stuck there for a while. Not even like a terrorist incident, but just like the claustrophobia of it. But the trains that, when I lived there, the trains that actually went through the Midtown Tunnel, like the E and the F that went from Queens to Manhattan, those were some of the best trains in New York. So those never concerned me.
Pauline, were
yeah,
you
I
trying?
don't know if this is of any comfort to anybody today. But the NBC New York is reporting that the police believe it was a sole actor,
Mhm.
and that he has fled the scene. So,
Right.
if that should be any comfort to anybody who is presently concerned about the issue acutely right now, it doesn't appear that the threat is ongoing. But it is that concern that New Yorkers have forever, that, right, these tunnels are vulnerable. And, how do we make tech work for us, switching the topics here, to make those tunnels safer?
Well, there's a trade-off with privacy, of course, when you put cameras down there. Do you want? Here's a question: do you want facial recognition on the cameras down there on the subway platforms?
Well, they say they've
What
already got so many
I
cameras
mean,
in
what
the
difference?
area, and they're already, they could see what he was wearing, they could see where he was, and he could ditch the vest and the helmet and blend right in. So, is there the trade-off with privacy? What do we want to do to protect those vulnerable tunnels?
So I want to
To
read.
Well,
answer your
now keep in
question,
Allegedly.
mind that
Tyler,
person is a
While,
suspect.
while you
That
consider that question, hold on. Let me just add a little more context. The New York Post reporting at least a dozen injured in Brooklyn subway shooting, undetonated devices found. And now what I'm starting to realize is that because there's talk of people were worried about some kind of gas. I think what's going on here, by reading multiple articles that I've scanned, that these undetonated devices are not bombs. They're like smoke canisters, because he had one. One of them did go off. And that's where this whole topic of fear of gas. But the smoke, because I just pinned to the top of the clubhouse room the New York Post article, and Cheryl just changed it to the ABC7 article. Um, okay, so now there's another incident breaking news right now: a manhole explosion causing panic in Times Square. That's a
That was yesterday. That was yesterday, Taylor.
okay. Thank you. But nothing much became of that, I guess.
Well,
No.
those happen routinely, but that, I mean,
Yes.
usually it wouldn't even be news.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't know. There's
So
a back channel, a guy saying that it may be related to this incident too.
okay, but I want to read this because it says uh, it was notably at 8:30 a.m., which is the peak of rush hour. So that at least there was obviously some premeditation around that. And I mean, how do you not with a loaded weapon? Anyway, the incident broke out at 8:30 a.m. A witness of the event told the Post there were so many rounds fired that she lost count. So this person is an incredibly terrible shot, clearly, and has no weapons training. You can deduce that. And what else can we deduce here? The next part that we there's
Tyler,
some hold on, hold on, hold on,
my guess is that
Doctor Fran. Hold on a second, please. There's a bunch of very gruesome, very upfront, close, and people standing next to the people who got shot took photos and put it online, and that's in the and one it says there was like a lot of them. I don't even know how many. They're referring to the number of shots that were fired. She said she saw the man who was described as 5'5", black man, about 170 pounds, wearing an orange vest and a gas mask. And then he dropped. This is the important point. He dropped some kind of cylinder that sparked at the top, meaning like a smoke canister, to obfuscate. It's almost like the Joker from Batman. You drop a smoke bomb, and then you can make your getaway, and no one saw who did it or whatever, right? And then she's quoted as saying, "I thought he was an MTA worker, like somebody who works on the trains, at first because I was like, I don't pay too much attention. You have the orange vest on, and so I just assumed he was a worker, so no one paid much attention to him. And he dropped a canister, and I'm looking at the photos, and there is a lot of smoke. There was a fire down there. So these undetonated devices might not even be bombs. They might be smoke
Tyler, I
canisters."
just sent you a video of the
Okay.
canisters going off.
Okay, great. In the Twitter DM. Is it the first or the second one?
I sent you a couple of them,
Right.
so I don't know
The,
which.
the most recent one is
The one that, yeah, the recent one is the canister one.
okay. Let's have a look at that. Train's coming to a stop. If there's a bunch of smoke as people exit the car, someone's shot. I mean, it's pretty crowded. It's pretty crowded down there. And the guy did lots of shots, but nobody fatally as directly. Okay.
And Tyler, New York has some of the toughest gun laws out there, and that just goes to show you, even though you can have tough ordinances and legislation, you just still have this crazy ass violence going on.
The suspect is believed to be dressed in some sort of construction clothing similar to an MTA worker. Quote, while we gather more information, we ask New Yorkers to stay away from this area for their safety, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea? So they're going to catch this dude one way or another.
Tyler, two cents here. One of
Yeah,
the things that if you used a very, very weak caliber of the gun, 22 or something like that, or even 32,
yeah,
the wounds won't be directly lethal unless they hit the heart or directly into
right,
the brain or into
right.
into the stem. But then the other thing, one of the things that we know in this channel is that gating is a fingerprint of who you are. So that he masked himself won't help him, because our friend Charles and their
Uh-huh.
assistants will find him through finding him and where he's gating away where he walks, where he did leave the scene, leave the another tube station a week ago or something like that. They will get him, Johan.
And
Okay.
that's why, Tyler, I was to answer your question before, if if people mind having facial recognition, it doesn't matter. The second they come out of the subways, it's gonna have there's gonna be some place somewhere cameras are gonna be pointing at you. So they'll get to see every single entry and exit point, who's coming in and out, no
Yeah,
matter what.
that's
Even if he's hiding in the tunnel somewhere, he's gonna have to come out sooner or later.
yeah, that's my main question is, and maybe Ken and you would be best to answer that. At the 36th Street station, when he comes up above ground, I'm looking at the above ground photos. There's got to be cameras around there, like where to watch.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
they know precisely the time that the guy would likely leave the subway. They're going to analyze. There's every 5 foot, 570 pound, 5 pound looking person exiting the subway cameras around within a window of 20 minutes. I don't see how they don't track that person down.
They'll find him. I'm sure, like Ken said, I do believe they're gonna find him. But you gotta understand, at that station, probably the minute he took off his orange vest, he was running out, and he's probably, going in between people during the mayhem. There's probably a lot of other people that look like him, that dress like him. I mean, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had someone try to unfortunately break in to my apartment, and so we had the police reports, and as I was looking, being scared, looking out the windows every day and night, trying to find someone that looked like him. I literally, in that moment, I realized everybody's wearing the same outfits. Everybody's wearing the same. Everyone has the same walk. Everyone has the same outfit. So, in a situation like this, I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of people coming out of there, and by the time they try and figure out, they follow every single person's routes, where they're going, who they are, and to be identified and witness accounts. It may take a minute, but like Ken said, I do believe that they'll definitely be found.
Well,
I wasn't. It was
what I have
Johan. It
more
was
faith in.
Johan. It was Johan who said that they would definitely be found, not me.
Sorry, Johan, it was you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
what I have faith in more today than in the past is all the cameras, is all the facial recognition technology. The only risk is the judgment of the people who are utilizing it, because even with all that, we've seen in the past where they've had pictures that said one thing and they ended up going out and stopping the guy who turns out to be 6'5" and he's a black guy. You know what I mean? So I say, long as, and I totally support profiling, so don't get that wrong. I just say, long as we have the right judgment aligned with the technology, we should be able to find this person really easy. They
Yeah.
just shouldn't fuck it up by utilizing their own prejudiceness to stop everybody that don't fit the profile.
I'm going to give everybody one clue, by the way, that there's something that no one's really spoke about here, and this is kind of more of a. I don't even know if this is local. I mean, but the fact is, most people who want to attack New York for a terrorist reason, or they're trying to make some sort of statement in New York City, don't pick Brooklyn, particularly that part of Brooklyn, to where to do it. So I think this is very local. This is probably somebody who lives in the area. This could be. I mean, you're going to find when we unearth what this is, probably some real local. When I say local, local to that to Brooklyn and local to that part of Brooklyn. This is not an accident, in my view, that they picked Sunset Park in Brooklyn as where to do this, as opposed to sometime at some place in Midtown Manhattan. There's a lot of people in this country, just forget about people overseas, but a lot of people in the United States. In fact, even people who live in New York, believe it or not, I just had a debate with someone who lives in Greenwich Village, who don't realize that Brooklyn's actually part of New York City. Okay, so if they're trying to make a statement on New York City, everybody always thinks Manhattan. So for this to be in Brooklyn, this is very localized, in my view, in terms of who the perpetrator is. Almost invariably, I think you're going to find that perpetrators from Brooklyn. I would be surprised if it wasn't, unless it was the most sophisticated plot in the world that they purposely avoided Manhattan. But I think the fact that it was not in Manhattan, I think, is incredibly interesting.
I
Hmm.
think you're right with that. But I wonder, do you think they might have chosen Brooklyn also because of a lesser fear, lesser security fears? I mean, how does someone get gas canisters and guns into the subway over there? I haven't been on the
Just
Brooklyn
as
subway in
easy.
30
Just
years.
as easy. I was just going to actually say that, Virginia, is that I agree with both of you because it's rush hour. I mean, it happened at 8:30 a.m. Everybody is coming into work from all different boroughs, New York City, from Manhattan, from Bronx, from Queens, from Staten Island. You know, they're all from Jersey. You know, they're coming into Penn Station. So, you know, you've got a lot of people at 8:30 a.m. I guarantee you that and it looks like it. You look at the videos, it was packed. You know, people are going in there in the morning to go to work. So, you know, it's possible that he didn't, the entry point wasn't somewhere where there was going to be lots of cameras. And you got to understand, there's a lot of plainclothes policemen and not enough, obviously, because we've got really, really bad crime going on, especially now. But there are tons of, you know, I would see them all the time where suddenly something would happen and they would immediately bring out their badges and their guns and, you know, they would stop a situation from getting worse. So usually, you know, a lot of those main stops are probably flooded with undercover police officers, plainclothes police officers, and you also have a lot more cameras. You know, not every single station has the same security level. You know, some of it's an old subway system. So a lot of places, a lot of the subway stops outside of the main stops and outside of the main tourist attraction areas, you may not have the best quality. You may not even have all of it under, you know, under camera. So it's really easy for people to just, you know, jump over the turnstiles and come in. So, you know, who knows what his entry level, I mean, what his
Well,
entry
right,
point
and the
was.
one thing I would add that particular subway stop is not, which most subway stops are not. They're not major transfer points. So if you
Right.
wanted to not to avoid a lot of cops, you wouldn't go to a major transfer point. So a major transfer point that most of you would be familiar with would be like Times Square, not just because it's Times Square, because there's a lot of trains that people change from one train to another train. You know, because you know the trains interconnect at certain places in Manhattan, like Times Square, like Union Square, whatever. Um, in Brooklyn, that would probably be the biggest transfer point would be Atlantic Avenue, okay, where you have many trains, including the Long Island Railroad that goes through the Atlantic Avenue station. At 36th Street and 4th Avenue in Brooklyn, you just have those lines. It's just a stop on the subway line. That's all it is, and it's not a transfer point of any sort. So, I mean, but still, why that particular one? I don't know. I think I'm still suspicious about why that one was picked, unless we find out maybe it was really sophisticated and maybe there are not cameras there. It's possible there may not be. You know. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking at one of the exits, which is next to on Fourth Avenue between 36th and Maple, which is like 35th, basically. And it looks like it's a what is that? A cemetery? And it looks like I'm looking at that exit, and it doesn't look like there is cameras right there when you come out of that exit on the ground level. Anyway,
I don't know that stop, so I can't answer that. I don't know
certainly,
that particular. I don't remember.
certainly there
It's
was a
like
good amount
overall
of
the security.
premeditation though, with the whole disguise and the rush hour and all of that. Um, you were saying, Dr.
This just
Prince?
brought something else to my mind. I'm sorry, I just want to say this too. It's that one of the main problems and the issues and complaints we always had was that for New York City, you know, a sophisticated city like New York, that um, we didn't have phone service underground. So, especially as a woman, for women, if you're traveling at night, and you know, these are 24-hour stations. So, you know, it's always been one of our biggest complaints is that if there's an emergency, we can't contact anybody. And even if, so, you know, maybe somebody recognized something in the sky and he got scared and, you know, maybe his destination was at a bigger stop, but he got scared and you know, started doing his shootings and his whatever devices he had. But even if someone saw it, you know, I know personally, I had incident myself many years ago where I was in a train. I literally, it was rush hour. It was afternoon rush hour. It was on a one train towards Columbia University, and it was a packed street. I mean, it was a packed train. And some guy just happened to open the door coming across from one train, one car to another car. And I just, as he slammed the door closed in between the trains, the slam sound took my attention. I looked over, we locked eyes for a second, and he went for my neck and he started to strangle me in the middle of the train with tons of people. Of course, people stopped him and, they got him off, and he was just, some druggie. And the scary part is I didn't even get off the train because I was waiting to actually go to the next stop to find out one of the main central areas just to see if there's going to be a cop so that I can point him out and do something. So for literally for 3 or 4 more stops, I sat across from him. And the crazy part is everybody was like, why didn't you, run away? Because I knew it wasn't personal. If I thought it was somebody after me, I would have been scared. I saw a guy that was on drugs, and yes, he went after me. Yes, he grabbed my neck. Yes, there was other New Yorkers that jumped in and took him out. And yes, I was scared after the fact, but it happens. So many crazy things happen on a daily basis there that this kind of stuff, if it's not personal, we don't take it that seriously. If it's something personal, then, because, there's crazy people out there that if it's personal, they'll come after you. But one of the biggest issues was that, you know, there's tons of undercover police officers. There's plainclothes police officers in the train stations, but many, many times, if something happens, we don't have communication services, we don't have cell service underground to alert anyone or to ask for help. And if there's no police officers in that station or in that car, or depending on the time of the hour, you're screwed. So I mean, this is something else that would have happened, is that maybe somebody saw this guy, or figured this guy's being fidgety. Maybe, who knows, a million different uh, possibilities. But even if someone did see something, until you find a cop or until you see somebody, or unless all you can do is just look at each other and just kind of alert each other to, hey, watch out, we got a crazy one in the car. Other than that, there's not much you can do.
Could I take a shot, Tyler, at
Yep.
reframing the discussion a bit? And I think the question you asked earlier about how would you feel about more pervasive cameras as a response to this incident.
Right.
If you look at what Putin did in bombing his own apartment housing in Moscow as a false flag to justify attacking Chechnya and leveling it, like he did in Georgia, like he's doing in Ukraine, it's a very deliberate sort of method to inspire support for totalitarianism, where privacy and freedom are voluntarily um, relinquished by a population um, in order to have a higher level of personal security. So, this is not Putin behind this. That's not my suggestion at all. My suggestion is that your question about how much privacy and freedom are you willing to sacrifice to prevent these kind of events would be potentially the long term. The short term significance is this could be just a blip if it's in isolation. But if you look at how many crazy people who are really upset with how they've been marginalized during COVID, who are angry and own a gun, um, might we have to weigh the balance between privacy slash freedom with security in the not too distant future? And it harkens back to your mention of the 9 meal parable around the tenuousness of civilization. So I think there might be more um, long-term significance to this random event, because I do believe it's random at this point, and some tough decisions we're going to have to make as a culture vis-a-vis the compromise between uh, privacy freedom with that of security.
Yeah. Okay, I think we covered that incident, and no doubt there will be updates probably by the time in the 2 hours that we do tech news today.
Can
So
I present another framing type?
go ahead, Pat.
This is Pat. I didn't want to comment early on because I don't want to take away from the Brooklyn, New York person's um, anxiety or hesitation or whatever about the incident. But I was chilled to the bone quite early on in hearing the room talk about this because, like the last speaker, I think that was John, anyhow, there could be a wider inference here because it's not just about the technology of identifying people and so on, the cameras, but perhaps the association with demonstrating freedom of speech and quote unquote terrorism that may be considered from things like Extinction Rebellion, like the Scientist Rebellion that's happened in the last week or so. It really is quite scary that even here in the UK, you mentioned it yourself, I believe, that there are people who the police have actually outnumbered the rebellion folks at their places of demonstration and actually have been very harsh about taking them off and arresting them and so on and so forth. So that sort of balance between surveillance and then freedom to protest, and then I suppose there's the integrity of that. Will you protest? Can you protest in a non-violent or virtually not almost non-violent way? Or is that kind of blockade of a bridge or a road seen to be an act of terrorism and inconveniences folk who then might be really irate about being stopped on their way to whatever, and then it becomes a baddie kind of situation. That really is quite scary, and I think we're being challenged now to figure all of that out. Thank you.
In Paddington, your experience with the Paddington terrorist event is certainly an
Absolutely.
exemplar of that.
Yeah, it's really scary too, because I think in London, people, it's water off a duck's back for a lot of Londoners, but all the train bombings that they've had, that really, you walk around feeling a bit nervous and scared. But I think the sort of stuff up a lip and chin in the air kind of thing makes people go back to normal quite soon. But it is very, very scary. So what do you say if somebody wants to protest? I mean, how far does it go, and how far does one let them go? That's a really knife edge kind of thing, I think.
Pat, I think I can respond to that to some extent, certainly from a UK point of view. So you can absolutely protest all you like. You can make as much noise as you like. You can keep neighborhoods awake. What you can't do is commit any crimes during that protest. So blocking a highway is a crime. So if you're blocking a road, that's specific. If you're to the side of the road, very different issue. But provided that nobody's committing any crimes and that there are no significant threats of violence, then the police are in there in a capacity to just protect the protesters as much as the passers-by, to make sure that there's no flare-ups between the rights of the protesters and the rights of the people surrounding them. So it's when the police have powers to be a little more heavy-handed is when there's things like an actual crime, like blocking a highway and so forth. But otherwise, people protest all they like, and they're very, very lenient in this country in terms of what's allowed protest-wise.
How do you
Difficult.
rationalize a former president of one country praising the truckers in Canada for shutting down cities with blockading of the freeways?
I don't know. That's a completely different question. I'm just saying what the UK law enforcement response is to protests. Yeah, I don't know about presidents telling other people they should be blocking
Yeah,
roads.
yeah. I think I'm not absolutely sure, so I do hesitate on that one. Yes, you're absolutely right. Maybe there is a sort of a very strict legal thing that says you cannot blockade a whatever a road, a highway, but it has been done so many times. And of course, the largest one in memory was during the last time that there was some sort of oil petroleum thing where the big trucks were blockaded, and they were lined up on the roads for quite a while in bits of Scotland and mostly in northern England, and they weren't allowed to go into the refineries. I can't remember which year that was, but it did stop the traffic, or certainly one lane of one or two lanes of the motorways here in Britain. But yeah, there may be some sort of legal aspect like that where literally it's illegal to do that. And in this day and age, though, you wonder how seriously is illegality taken anyway, given the other headline thing at the moment in the UK, and that's about Partygate. But yeah, there we are. We could talk about fossil fuels and climate change, or we could talk about integrity in politics forever and a day just now.
Okay. Should we go to the big tech headlines of today, or is there interesting Ukraine developments to discuss? Just taking a
There
I
was
got another
something
six
about
minutes on.
chemical attacks in Mariupol. I have no verification of that, but apparently an unmanned drone dropped something, and a couple of people did get very hard to breathe on that. But
Oh
I
yeah,
don't have any more
you're right.
information than that.
Yeah, yeah. So Mariupol is reporting that apparently the Russians dropped something that caused people to lose their breath, like a potential chemical weapon. That's a very concerning development, if true. Jorge, you were going to say?
No, I got at 5 a.m. another 6 minute update from Peter Zahan, but it's up to you if you want to hear it.
But he's talking about the Russian currency, right? That is the gold. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
Russian gold.
yeah, yeah. Essentially, one of the moves that the central bank did was to now say that the currency is backed by gold to stop it from cratering, like Venezuela style, I guess. Which it has stopped that from happening. The question is how where will it go from here? I haven't heard what Peter said, but he made a point about this a week ago about how they're going to try and connect it to something so that it will at least have some tangible value rather than shatter.
And that he estimates it's about a year that the minimum that they can hold out against the sanctions because of all their gold is about a year.
Right. Okay.
Hi, Aniki. Hi, Aniki here. Russia is jamming GPS completely in Ukraine, which also affects commercial aircrafts in the Baltic Sea, for instance. So anyone who flying to Finland, for instance, can, or into the Baltic countries can be affected, or an aircraft. So it's a major problem. News came just now, so that may have a wider effect as well. Thanks.
Anika,
Yep.
do you know if that's just GPS or GLONASS or any of the other two? There's several global satellite positioning systems. So
I'm not sure. I heard GPS, but mainly, but it might be bigger than that. But it do affect aircrafts anyway. I mean commercial aircraft. So that can be a problem.
Okay. So, what else do we got on Ukraine front? I saw a headline.
most GPS receivers, including just the one in your phone, can use not only GPS but GLONASS and two or three other international systems. Commercial aircraft will be able to use more than just GPS as well, but they also have inertial navigation and radio navigation. So, whereas it might degrade their performance, I'd really be disappointed if a commercial aircraft decided it couldn't fly because of a GPS blockage, but still.
Okay. Any other Ukraine related stories in the past 24 hours? I'm looking here and I see Putin says Russian invasion will achieve noble aims from BBC 3 hours ago. What are these noble aims? Speaking alongside the Belarusian leader Lukashenko, Putin claims that the clash with Ukraine has become inevitable. Mr. Putin said he had been left with no choice but to launch the invasion in a bid to protect the Russian speaking Donbass region. The UN says 10 million people have fled their homes since the invasion began. That's a lot of people. But during a public appearance marking the 61st anniversary of Yuri Gagarin becoming the first man in space, Mr. Putin insisted that his forces are aiding oppressed people in separatist regions of Ukraine. Quote, on the one hand, we're helping and saving people. On the other, we are simply taking measures to ensure the security of Russia itself. Quote, it's clear that we didn't have a choice. It was the right decision, he said, adding that the goals are perfectly clear. They are noble. The Kremlin claims that Ukraine has committed genocide against Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine, but there is no evidence to suggest that it is the case. More than 10 million people have been forced to flee their homes. However, the Russian president said that Russia does not intend to be isolated, arguing that it is impossible to severely isolate anyone in the modern world, especially such a vast country as Russia. The sanctions were total. The isolation was complete, but the Soviet Union was still in place. He says, speaking about the Cold War, and Mr. Lukashenko also dismissed the impact of the sanctions, asking Putin, "Why on earth are we getting so worried about these sanctions?" That was from 2 hours ago from the BBC. And what else? A Ukraine person spoke to the BBC 17 hours ago saying that Russian soldiers raped me and killed my husband. And Putin warns that Russia cannot be isolated from the West. We'll see about that. By the way, the airlines, basically every European state or country, just kind of unilaterally all agreed that Russian airplanes are no longer safe to travel over EU airspace because they don't have access to the parts and whatnot. So they're no longer even considered safe for even attempting to fly over EU airspace. So you won't be having any kind of international flights leaving out of Russia heading over Europe anytime soon. The Guardian reporting 7 hours ago that Russia is using weapons smuggled by Iran from Iraq against Ukraine. Smuggled by Iran from Iraq. Ukrainian parents are writing IDs on their children's bodies in case they get separated. And amid war fears, Ukraine stocked up on Turkish defense equipment. And I think that's about it. Okay, so now we can turn to the big tech stories as we always do. Before we do, would anyone like to go first with any kind of tech headline that they saw since we met last time? Going once. Going twice.
Yeah, I don't know if this is.
Go ahead, Jorge.
Oh, sorry. I just posted on your site that there's an Israeli agricultural tech company called BeWise, and they just raised $80 million in its Series C funding round. And so what BeWise does is it uses AI and robotics technology to solve the global decline in the bee population. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I went on the website and you could see how the robotics works. And they have like the beehive, you know, that has the small robotics in there. And this is a major problem because 75% of the world's food crops and 35% of agricultural land depends on animal pollination. And so what I was reading was between April 2020 and April 2021, just a year ago, roughly 45% of the entire bee population collapsed. So this is a major effort to try to combat that.
Okay. So the top tech story today is from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, who says he has sources, as he always seems to have, that Apple has delayed adding a blood pressure monitor to the Apple Watch until 2024, possibly even 2025, after difficulties with accuracy during testing. Apple's plan to add a highly anticipated blood pressure monitor to its smartwatch has hit some snags, and the technology isn't expected in the next couple versions. But no doubt it will get there eventually. Because if Apple could then track your blood pressure, that could be a very interesting, it can be used in very non-obvious ways. For example, so can your heart rate be used in interesting ways. So can your movement be used in very interesting ways that you would not intuit. So how your blood pressure rises as a result of, for example, if your devices have cameras on them and they know what content you're looking at and where on the page you're looking, because they know what's on the screen and where your eyes are looking, and how your blood pressure responds to that stimulus. That could be very useful in an ad network, just as an example.
As
I
a
would.
paramedic, I can say that what they already have in this watch is that they have pulse oximetry. They actually can measure your saturation of oxygen in the blood as well as the heart rate, as you all know.
Yeah,
But measuring the blood pressure so far out on the arm is no easy feat,
sure.
because you actually need to have a baseline. So I can see that they have a technology to bridge here, but these with the pulse oximetry, I know that that's actually have saved lives.
Yeah.
You wonder.
Ben, you were going to say?
Yeah, yeah, basically the same as Johan. If you look at how blood pressure has been measured almost since day one, it is by applying pressure to the arm and restricting the blood flow. And because of the way pressure is just pressure in all directions, it kind of works. And it doesn't matter whether it's some dude pumping up a rubber thing or an electrical device pumping up a band. It's very simple. It's very reliable. It's a hard bar to reach when you're trying to do it further away from the brachial artery in the arm, but also I'm pretty sure they'll be doing it by measuring some proxy of blood pressure. So I'd be interested to watch. I suspect they will hit some hurdles for a while before they can get something, FDA approved.
Okay. The next one is, oh, Mark Gurman did a tweet about this saying that Apple aims to add blood pressure to the watch in 2024, but new sleep and women's health and medicine management and workout features are coming this year. That's pretty cool. Some new sleep features, some new women's health features, um, medicine management. That's pretty cool. And workout features. Also coming, Apple Watch low power mode and satellite SOS and more. Ooh, satellite SOS. I think we read a hint about that one a while back. So you could literally be anywhere on the planet and be able to call for SOS. That's pretty freaking cool, I gotta say. The next one, number 2, that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, rolls out a test for some creators to sell virtual items in Meta's metaverse called Horizon Worlds, and they will take Meta takes a 25% cut of any sale after App Store fees. Horizon Worlds will take a 25% cut of any sale after App Store fees. Meta is testing new feature to let creators sell virtual goods in their first kind of metaverse environment, Horizon Worlds. Most notably, a handful, quote unquote, of Horizon creators will be able to sell virtual items and effects in the worlds they create for others to explore. The idea is that creators can sell everything from access to a VIP section of their world to virtual items like jewelry or special basketball. Participants in the US will also be able to earn money from a $10 million creator fund that Meta recently set up to reward creators with the most engaging worlds. With this test of in-world purchases, Meta is following in the footsteps of other 3D social platforms like Roblox and Rec Room, which both let creators sell items that they make. Roblox has built a huge business from this model, while Rec Room is growing quickly and prioritizing creator monetization as well. Dr. Fran, as the person on stage who's been dabbling with this perhaps more than the rest of us, do you have a thought on Facebook, getting in on virtual sales?
Sure, Tyler. I'm pretty opinionated on this. I think that the look of Horizon World sucks, but there are some very creative content creators there, and I visited a few interactive worlds that are nice. I think it'll work. What they're saying offline is that with the fees the way they are right now, it's going to end up being about 50% of the cost is going to be taken off. So you'll only get a 50% of what you charge, which is not making people happy. But that's not too dissimilar from Epic and Unity and Rec Room and the other providers. There's only a handful of people in Horizon Worlds that are producing really, as far as I'm concerned, really good content. I have to say, the stuff I've seen in other places really outclasses it. But Meta can throw a lot of money at things which some of the other worlds can't do. So we'll
Yeah,
have to watch this space.
it's going to be tricky where the real talent wants to go. I mean, there's this proclivity for artists to want to, I mean, in the, let's think pre VR artists tend to want to seek out very non-corporate places and spaces that feel authentic to their ability to make fantastic creations. So I think the most compelling and interesting artists, creators, will probably not be on Facebook's platform. And in fact, the people who do choose Facebook's platform, I think, will be perhaps some of the least interesting, kind
Corporate
of
shills.
regenerative kind of um, creators, and that's okay. But it's going to be interesting to see where the most interesting content gets created. But the really legit, the most impressive creations in the metaverse, it's not. Is it fair to say it's not yet clear where that's going to occur?
No, I think a lot of the epic stuff is really nice. Unreal Engine 5 is a game changer.
Right.
It allows people to create worlds that where you don't have to really be as concerned about how many polygons you're using. So that,
Right.
you know, with the nanites, it's an absolute game changer, and they have live lighting, their lumen system. I've been playing with that for a while now. It's amazing, but is that going to be where people go? I don't know. I mean,
Right.
I really, Horizon is looking at a very young demographic, and I think they have the right idea. Done.
Correct me if I'm wrong as
I have
well.
a
The Facebook, the Meta's Horizon Worlds seems conflicted and sort of trying to bridge a very weird gap between very youth-like and at the same time like the corporate productivity space. Like they're trying to do both, where it's almost like this animated, boring version of corporate land to appeal to kids and boring corporate folks simultaneously. It's kind of weird. But on this topic of artists and creativity, I want to give a shout out to Lex Friedman in the audience, who just did an interview with um, Rick Rubin, who's, speaking of artists, is a really interesting person to watch because he's been at the forefront of kind of Western creativity for longer than perhaps anybody, several decades at this point, since the birth of hip hop, and I mean legitimately the birth of hip hop. And he just posted it to his YouTube account. I just watched the beginning of it, and I had to pause it to open tech news, and I can't wait to get back to his interview with Rick
Who's
because
the Tyler?
yeah, I want to see if he actually mentions and I imagine he probably does at some point, the metaverse and AI and what his feelings are about AIs and creativity or the metaverse and creativity and all of that, because the music industry is going to have to grapple with both of those things to some extent. Um, I'm hopeful that he did bring those issues got raised in that interview. But kudos to Lex for getting Rick to sit down for an interview. Rick, for those who don't know, Rick is, if you've never seen him do an interview, um, he's a unique, beautiful person. So I think you'll be very impressed and enjoy it, even if you aren't a lover of music. I think you'll still take a lot away from Rick's gestalt, for lack of a better word. So,
Welcome on stage,
t-
Lex.
um, a, a thought on the metaverse, Tyler.
yeah.
I think to reach its full potential, I think it's going to have to employ open standards like the web did to embrace its full potential. If it's just got if it's just confined to the walled gardens of Apple or Meta or anybody, I'm not sure it's going to reach its full potential. When I hear metaverse, I hear a layer on top of the internet that needs, I think, to be somewhat more open, and also to help with the scaling problems. In the same way as the internet scales, each person brings their slice of the internet and their slice of the infrastructure needed to make that work. I think we're going to have to do that. If we're literally going to have tens of millions of people online simultaneously, I think you're going to have to bring your creativity, your server power, and your new functionality as a slice to that, and to be able to plug that slice into a somewhat harmonized or homogenized interface to make
Yeah.
this really work. But that's just my thought.
Well, I think Dr. Fran was right that both Unity, and I've said previously that Unity and Unreal or Epic to me seems like the likely place where the true creators who are going to be at the forefront of the most cutting edge, pushing the envelope of what's possible and the most impressive experiences. I think it's going to happen there. And because of that, I'll even predict, as big as Unity is, Facebook might have to acquire it. Somebody, or Google, or Apple, or Facebook, or Microsoft will have to acquire Unity and or Epic to get access to Unreal, because those two platforms are just seemingly where the puck is going.
Yeah, they're the tools for creation of the content in the same way as in the old days Dreamweaver was the tool for creation of web content, but they're not the place where this experience is hosted and run.
Right.
That's on somebody else's servers. So that's the bit where I really think there has to be some form of, and maybe it comes after the closed standards, but I think there needs to be some sort of open standard.
Shout out to Ben for his Udemy courses on Unreal, which allowed me to learn Unity.
Oh my God, we got a student in the
Imagine
room.
if Spotify had bought Pro Tools, which was what everyone, well, a lot of people made when music went digital away from 2-inch tape. It went to Pro Tools momentarily, and then other genres like EDM went to Logic and Ableton Live and other things. But imagine if Spotify had those tools and made it super simple to publish directly to Spotify. Spotify could have been even far more powerful than they are today. So the next one is that Circle, which maintains the USDC stablecoin, raises $400 million from BlackRock and Fidelity and others after raising 440 exactly a year ago. So BlackRock and Fidelity headlined the stablecoin issuers' latest fundraising round, which follows a similar round a year ago. Next is from Forbes, a profile of Andreessen Horowitz's Chris Dixon, whose early bets on crypto startups, including Coinbase, Uniswap, and Dapper Labs, which was a lot of the NFTs, have made him Forbes' top VC in the space. And what they're referring to is the new Forbes Midas list, which just came out in the past, 4 or 5 hours ago. And this is just a dick measuring contest, pun definitely not intended, and it's kind of I think they go up to 100 this year with this Midas list. And so Chris is not listed as number one because he had a very stellar year. So Andreessen Horowitz's partner is the new number one on Forbes' 21st annual Midas list of top venture investors. I see Keith Raboy did a tweet a few hours ago pointing out that Founders Fund is the only fund to have two in the top 10, with him and Peter Thiel both in the top 10. And yeah, Dixon at number one. And there's a lot more Europeans this year. So let's see here. Exchange value. We'll cover more about the Midas list in upcoming headlines, no doubt. So the next article from Bloomberg, that Ethereum developers launch the so-called mainnet shadow fork, a key stress test ahead of the proof of stake merge upgrade expected to reduce energy use by 99%. Let's take it away, Ben. Ethereum's network is inching closer towards its much anticipated software upgrade known as the merge, having just entered a key testing step, getting away from proof of stake, which obviously is very energy intensive, and they're doing a fork.
I can only yawn because I've been waiting for this for so long, and I can't believe it's actually going to happen.
And I guess this is, in summary, a strategic move that to position itself, because there is an opportunity, but one would argue that one of the frictions against Bitcoin, the biggest friction against Bitcoin, I think we could all agree, is culturally. The biggest criticism of Bitcoin is not that it's not, it's the greenness, that it uses too much energy. Whether or not that's true, let's save that debate for a later time. My point is that the one of the main criticisms, if not the main criticism, is the greenness. And I would to if an evidence of my point, I would point to none other than Elon Musk himself, who said his reluctance around Bitcoin is precisely that, the green issue, the amount of CO2 that's used in mining Bitcoin and maintaining the network and everything. So if that ends up being what holds Bitcoin back is the CO2 or greenness issue, and that's likely to be the case, that if something does hold it back, it would be that. Then that opens the door of opportunity for somebody to make a green alternative, right? Like a super energy light coin of sorts that essentially would serve a lot of the main functions, maybe not all, and maybe not the key ones that some people would likely point out. The truly decentralized nature of Bitcoin, which Ethereum, I don't know that it can ever have. I don't know if this new fork, and Ben might know.
I think that what you're describing is thermodynamically impossible, but not to go into it too much now. And the bottom line to me is that 0.1% of the world's CO2 output, which is what Bitcoin currently produces, for a shot at producing something that is, or already is, truly nation-state resistant, decentralized, i.e. decentralized to the point where a nation-state actor can't affect it, is worth it. And I do not think there's any other credible way of doing it except for spending energy. I'd love to be proved wrong in a way, but I don't think that 0.1% of our carbon output, it's too high a price to pay. And that's before you factor in the ways in which Bitcoin mining drives certain clean energy initiatives through stranded gas and the like. So I don't buy that argument. I think that an argument where the people that own the most of the coin are the ones that have ultimately the most control. I don't think that is any different to our current fiat system, and therefore I think it's because it's not different in kind. I don't think it has any benefits, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. Next up is from Wired that DuckDuckGo, which is a fledgling, no pun intended, search engine, a Google alternative, which was kind of pushing the privacy point. DuckDuckGo launches its privacy-focused browser on macOS in beta through a private waitlist. And now they're really going after Google's golden goose. Again, no pun intended. First they start with a Google search engine alternative. Now they're going after a Google Chrome alternative because they've realized that the privacy isn't so much about whether or not you're using Google's search engine. Is which browser you're using is where the bulk of your data is being extracted from, far more than the search engine. So kudos to them. This could get interesting. DuckDuckGo started out as a private search engine. Now it's a web browser. It's debuting on Macs to rival Chrome, Safari, Edge, and Brave. Anyone with a thought on DuckDuckGo browser?
Yeah, because I'm using Brave for privacy, and it's also rivaling Brave. But Brave has a coin, and it's kind of a Web3 browser, and I don't think DuckDuckGo is. I've used it a couple of times, but I don't think, like Brave, it's tokenized.
Mm-hmm.
Brave is based
I
on
use the
Chromium,
Brave
though.
browser and DuckDuckGo for search engine. And it works phenomenal if you want
Be
privacy.
be aware that Brave and others run on the Chromium engine, so just be careful you're actually getting something different.
Everything runs on the Chromium engine.
So DuckDuckGo tweeted
Sure,
out
so just use Chrome.
saying that DuckDuckGo for Mac is in beta, a fast everyday browser that protects your privacy by default with private search, tracker blocking, and HTTPS upgrading, and new features like automatic cookie pop-up management and more. Okay, next is from
But
Bloomberg.
I really like getting rewards, and Brave gives rewards.
The next one's from Bloomberg about a filing that Meta spent nearly $27 million on Mark Zuckerberg's security in 2021, up 6% from 2020, far above other executives such as Google CEO Sundar Pichai, which is just $4.3 million, and even Jeff Bezos with just $1.6 million. so he's got nearly a 20x or 16, 17x increase of security costs over Jeff Bezos.
Well, looking at Jeff Bezos' physique recently, it looks like he can look after himself anyways.
Okay, fair enough. Um, the next is from Reuters that TikTok's ad revenue is projected to triple in 2022 to $11 billion, surpassing Twitter and Snapchat combined, which are expected to make about 5.5 and 5 billion each. And so at 11, they're equal to both combined. So here comes TikTok's ad revenue spike. The next is a look at Stripe's $925 million Frontier initiative, which funds carbon removal startups and has received funding from Alphabet and Shopify and Meta and others. Some of the world's largest companies will spend nearly $1 billion buying offsets from startups that remove carbon dioxide from the air. They tweeted by saying that AMCs are a way to guarantee a market for a product even before it exists. The goal is to send a strong signal to researchers, entrepreneurs, and investors that there will be a demand for their products, giving them the confidence they need to start building.
Oops, sorry about being unmuted for a second accidentally while I clutter around. I love the idea of carbon removal fundamentally because it's got the potential to turn the problems that have caused climate change right back against themselves. That is capitalism and industrialization. Let's use capitalism and industrialization to solve the problem that it created. Big ass machines sucking the carbon out of the air, putting it somewhere like biochar that we spread on the roads or whatever the hell we do with it to keep it away from the atmosphere for a few millennia.
Okay. Next is from the New York Times. NFT avatar startup Genius raises $150 million at a $1 billion valuation. Last week, tonight's John Oliver weighed in on data brokers, showing how easy it was to target members of Congress with ads after obtaining their personal info. And he escalated his typical shenanigans on Sunday night, going from poking fun at politicians to outright blackmailing them, saying that I think he's threatening to release the data if they don't pass a law or some new legislation to prevent this type of stuff from happening. So he's basically saying, stop me from releasing your data by passing new regulation that would prevent me from releasing it.
That is brilliant.
So John,
It's on YouTube if you want to see it. It's really hilarious.
yeah, I will pin it to the top of the room. Oh, I think Cheryl already did. Thank you, Cheryl. So, quote here, he says, so it seems when Congress's own privacy is at risk, they somehow find a way to act, Oliver said. And it also seems like they're not entirely aware just how easy it is for anyone, and I do mean anyone, to get their personal information. In researching this story, we realized that there is any number of perfectly legal bits of fuckery that we could engage in. We could, for example, use data brokers to go fishing for members of Congress by creating a demographic group consisting of men age 45 and up in a 5-mile radius of the U.S. Capitol who had previously visited sites regarding or searching for terms including divorce, massage, hair loss, and midlife crisis. Oliver's team then named that group Congress and Cabinet and served them with 3 targeted ads. One read, marriage shouldn't be a prison. One read, can you vote twice? And the third advertised Ted Cruz erotic fan fiction. For what it's worth, Oliver was fully aware of just how fucking creepy the entire thing was, but the late night host also pointed out that the number of clicks these fake ads got was very much not zero. According to Oliver, the first ad that got clicked on was actually the Cruz related ad. It came from a man around the Embassy Row area who clicked on it from his Android phone. The host then revealed that among the many men in the demographic they created, 3 clicked on each of the targeted ads respectively, and each man may have been inside the Capitol building itself. If you're thinking, how on earth is any of this legal? I totally agree with you. It shouldn't be. And if you happen to be a legislator who's feeling a little nervous right now about whether your information is in this envelope, And if you're terrified about what I might do with it, you might want to channel that worry into making sure that I can't do anything.
Love John Oliver. He's awesome.
I say leak it.
How could we employ a similar strategy for climate change? Would be my question.
That's a great question. Perhaps we leverage the data into action.
Nah, these people don't follow data, they follow embarrassment.
The next article.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, Tyler, just a little viewpoint over here. There's so much controversy about data anyway, and there are so many implications, and we really need to be focused on something that is actually going to create a positive outcome in the round for all things concerned. And I know that is complicated and complex, and God, we need to do something right now. But this whole thing, and then circling back to the last item that you had pinned at the top of the room about the carbon renewal. um, I had a quick look at the article as you were speaking and rounding off that topic, and I thought, gosh, I really need to focus on this and figure out what it is, because it's such a technology that I have heard in different rooms in Clubhouse. There are so many other implications that I would prefer to leave a discussion or a deep discussion on that to other people who are more informed. And so I'm hoping, Tyler, it's not really meant to be a plug, but there are a group of us who meet on a Saturday morning to talk about these things that come up in the news, but specifically from a climate angle. And I'm so appreciative of people who come up and give their comments. And I'm hoping that Ben will join us on Saturday morning. So that'd be great. Who was that? Somebody wanted to jump in?
No, sorry, that was a video I just played.
All right. So that's an open invitation to everyone. But really, the whole climate change thing is such an issue, and whether it gets as much press as, say, the war in Ukraine or various other tech things in China or wherever, it still is something that so relates to us all that yeah, it's rather like the idea of our sovereign currency and all that Nicholas always talks about. It's such a complex thing. We have to start taking action sometime, somewhere, and it's really one step at a time, moving forward, hopefully in the right direction. Um, can I did say I was going to suggest to Cheryl that I would text her beforehand, but since I'm on, Tyler, would I be able to put a plug on for being fossil fuel free?
Yep.
Oh, thank you so much. There is a very, very tiny action that any of us, whether we're techies or politicians or whoever, that we can take if we have an aspiration towards mitigating climate change. And given that the picture is so complicated and the problem is so hard, that any small step is really well worth the action. So on Earth Day, which is the 22nd of April, just in less than 2 weeks' time, Mother Earth First Room, a club here on Clubhouse, is hosting a pledge that is encouraging people to pledge that they will use a non-fossil fuel vehicle on that day, Earth Day, the 22nd of April. Now, non-fossil fuel vehicle could be your 2 feet, just walking, or you could cycle, or you could go on a train, or you could share a car, an EV car, of course. And if you have an EV vehicle, you can also use that, and so on and so forth. And I would like to encourage people in this room to please take a simple act. It's just the first step, even tinier than a baby step, to join in this pledge. And who knows, it might work out to be an everyday fossil fuel free day rather than just on Earth Day, the 22nd. Please do look up motherearthfirst.org/FFF, or you can go to the
It
Twitter
is pinned
page
on
of
top of
at
the room.
fossil fuel underscore free. At fossil fuel underscore free. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Tyler, and all the best to everyone regarding climate mitigation.
It is pinned on top of
And
the room.
Tyler, to answer your question about how do we apply the same John Oliver tactics for climate change, on August 1st of 2017, headline, Al Gore's Inconvenient Reality, the former vice president's home energy use surges up to 34 times the national average despite costly green renovations. So, publishing energy consumption and carbon footprints from public available data sources. Um, could address both the privacy issues and the climate change personal commitments in one fell swoop.
I have a little plug of my own to share on this topic. Each year, in September, early September, as Annika well knows, or pretty much everyone in Sweden knows, I host or produce a large tech conference, and I do that in collaboration with a lot of big partners, including the city of Stockholm. And the city of Stockholm wants to really become known as the leader of sort of impact technology, and send out a loud siren to innovators everywhere that if you want to do impact tech, that we should all come together, and Stockholm would be a fantastic place to do that, which it absolutely is, by the way, because there's a lot of impact investors there and incubators and entrepreneurs already. And the Swedes really are, I think, one step ahead on this issue. So this year, what we're doing, September 7th to 14th, is Impact Week, which will involve, I think it'll be the world's largest hackathon for impact. It'll be potentially the world's largest job fair for impact, and a huge expo in the middle of the city, and a conference, an impact conference, which I did in 2016 as well. And so we're going to do that kind of bigger and better this year, and a whole bunch of fun activities, a whole week's worth of activities that the whole city will come together around. And me and my team are already in the back channels working on that. So if that sounds interesting to you, September 7 to 14, Impact Week in Stockholm. And we're just at the ground floor of it, doing all of the blueprints. So if you know folks who should engage, let me know. My there's
Tyler.
yes,
Tyler, let me. This is Robert. Let me know if you want how the student thing worked on your last one,
it was super
and then
cool.
maybe I'd be up for supporting that also.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. And
I'm
by the
not
way,
a student, Tyler, but I was meaning to actually get in touch with you when you last mentioned this, or say first mentioned this a week or two ago,
mhm.
thinking that please, how can I get information about that? Stockholm is just a short hop away, and it would be really great to join in or take part or help in some way or other. I'd
Great,
really appreciate that, but that's of course if it's needed on your side. Thank you.
sure,
Yeah, Tyler, it would be great to come to that Impact Week in Stockholm, and definitely ping me for any Africa-related impact ventures I could connect, and maybe Messi and others from Africa would also kind of join in. It'd be nice to meet up.
yeah, I agree with that. I'm glad to hear that. So let's get back to the headlines. The next one is that Coinbase will produce a movie trilogy based on Bored Ape Yacht Club's set to premiere at the NFT.NYC event in June. Next is from Bloomberg that some business customers say Microsoft's licensing rules make it harder and costlier to run Windows and Office on rival cloud platforms like AWS and Google Cloud. Gee, you think? Yeah. Microsoft's going to make it optimized to run on Microsoft Azure, their cloud. I guess people are going to try and claim antitrust or whatever, but yeah, good luck with that, because Azure isn't even the leader in cloud. So the next is from Bloomberg, says they have sources that a Singapore-based fashion marketplace called Zalingo suspends the CEO after attempts to raise about $200 million led to an investigation over funny accounting. The next is that
Duolingo, the application that sort of teaches you different languages.
no, not Duolingo. This is called Zilingo, Lingo, Zalingo. Fitbit receives FDA clearance for passive heart rhythm monitoring to detect signs of AFib, atrial fibrillation, and will roll out the feature in the US soon. So I think John can comment how useful that can be for people who might have irregular heartbeats, and being able to wear a Fitbit with this new FDA clearance might hopefully save some lives. The next is that mental health app called Real, Real, which offers subscriptions starting at $13 a month, raises $37 million. And Real is a mental health app. There you go. I assume it's kind of like telemedicine for mental health. The next is Observe.ai, which develops call center software that analyzes conversations, raises $125 million from SoftBank. Contact centers play a key part in call a company engages with customers amounting to anyway. Meta has sent about 90 subpoenas related to the FTC's antitrust case against them to companies, including Dispo, which says the requests are overbroad and harassing. Okay, so Facebook is trying to warn everyone to calm down about this investigation.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes.
I got like breaking news here, and it's not like tech news, but only because we're talking about New York
Yep.
before.
Yep.
It's and it doesn't happen that often, and it just happened. We just released this like an hour ago,
Yep.
but the Lieutenant Governor of New York, a guy named Brian Benjamin. So I guess he's the new Lieutenant Governor because the existing Lieutenant Governor became governor when Cuomo left. He was just arrested on campaign finance fraud charges. It's not usual to see a lieutenant governor in any state, by the way, arrested. I've so I just thought it was like, so it just hit the wires, not tech related.
Okay. So the next one is interesting. Does anyone remember when Spotify bought an app called Locker Room, which was a Clubhouse style app,
Yeah,
I
green
remember.
room.
and
Yeah.
they
Yes,
rebranded it as Green Room? Do
Yes.
y'all remember
and
that?
Yes.
And
exactly.
do you remember, because it's a standalone app, you have to download an app called Green Room and go in there and you can have your social audio experience in Green Room, right?
With all
Right.
the jams at the
Now,
beginning.
here's my question. Was there not some really handsome, smart dude who made a
A
comment back
bald headed
then,
guy.
some bald headed guy who said that Spotify in the not so distant future would bundle that functionality into the mother Spotify app and would call it live audio? Did I not
They said
say?
that last week. That was announced last week or 2 weeks ago. That was actually a formal announcement. You covered it on this show, by the way.
You
No,
covered
that
it last year, though.
Yeah.
No, he covered
Tyler said it.
Spotify
Yes.
integrating it and calling it
Yes.
Spotify Live.
Yes. It's called Spotify Live.
yes.
Nice.
So the headline from TechCrunch from 8 hours ago is that Spotify brings live audio shows to its main app, rebrands the companion app Green Room as Spotify Live. Oh, wow. Oh, how interesting. As an earlier report suggested, Spotify today announced it will integrate the live audio capabilities from its companion app, Spotify Green Room, within the main Spotify streaming app. Green Room will also rebrand as Spotify Live. What that means is the size of these rooms is about to potentially get crazy fucking ridiculously big because you have
Tyler, do we know
200.
what the contractual agreement with the creatives are like for that?
I don't think there are any. Oh well, you mean financially?
Yes.
Uh,
Didn't they didn't
no,
they sign a lot of famous people to be in that green room and stuff like that
No, I don't
already?
think they
Like,
did. No. I don't think they did at all.
not that I'm aware of.
No. And Tyler, I just went because I have that app downloaded, so I just went to see what would happen if I tried to open it up now, and it says that the app's updated and you have to hit something. I haven't bothered because I'm on this thing now, but yeah. So this today might be D-Day. I'll see when we're done with tech news. I'll figure out what happens with Green Room.
So, but now that Spotify's mother app has Clubhouse-like functionality. That's the easiest way to describe it for Clubhousers, or Twitter Space functionality for the Twitter Spacers, because we actually have an audience of Twitter Spacers over here. And now the mother Spotify app, which is a wildly popular app that people turn to listen to stuff, and they had originally only music, and then they added podcasts. And when they did that, they created a separate menu so that you now choose between music stuff and podcasts. They're separated into a different category, and it's a different menu item on the top of the screen. There's now a third item in the menu going left to right. You have music, of course, now podcast, and now live audio. And when you click on live audio, and I told you it would be called live audio a year ago, did I not? And in this live audio, you now have these rooms of people who are discussing all kinds of stuff, and very much like Clubhouse Hallway or the Twitter Spaces. What I don't know what Twitter Spaces calls their version of a hallway, but yeah, there's now going to be live audio in the mother app. The reason that's so interesting, I know I've said this before if you're a regular tech newser going back a year ago, is because one of the things that enabled Twitter to become what it is today was because they got the celebrities came on Twitter, notably Ashton Kutcher, and then Oprah and everybody else. But Clubhouse was doing that early on, and is proven to be challenging to maintain that. Twitter also does have a bit of interesting people using their Twitter Spaces. Spotify might be in a really privileged position because of two things. They have a lot of analytics for artists on Spotify, and they might provide the analytics of the room to the artists, and artists could play their songs in their rooms. So you could have all of the content creators. Spotify has a shit ton of huge content creators, like the biggest, like all of them, and music wise, anyways, and podcast people as well. So the top podcasters and the top music creators are already very familiar and fond of the platform, or engaged with the platform because they track their analytics to grow their audiences. And now they can engage with their audience. They have a tool to engage with their audiences in a way that they previously didn't, and perform for those audiences and charge money for those performances and sell virtual goods in those as part of those performances. That's also something that Spotify is rolling out. I don't know if they actually have done that yet or not, but I told you they would, and they will. So they're going to, in the not too distant future, have it so that the creatives, the music creators or podcast creators, can have paid rooms, which are like virtual concerts. Holy shit, is that going to be a huge business? And be able to sell virtual goods, or physical goods, both.
Right. That's
Didn't we?
why I'm
Didn't
wondering
we?
about their contractual agreement. Do they have any percentile that they're
Oh,
getting from
I
that?
believe
Because
they're
there
not.
are creators that have already been setting up for this
Right.
and prepared in the green room. But I'd like to see what's Spotify's benefit overall, and is it beneficial? Will they be able to keep their creators, or can someone else later on, a second mover in this industry, come in and poach their idea?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I think we discussed this when Green Room started, and then that there was even, I don't remember, but someone mentioned that even Taylor Swift would come and play music, for a ton of people, and Spotify would be like taking advantage of it the exact same way, Tyler, you're explaining it, especially that comparing it with Clubhouse, saying that if they monetize it very easily, even charging $1, like for a million people or thousands of people showing up, she can make like overnight millions of dollars sitting in her house playing music. That's exactly what a lot of people were really predicting, and I'm pretty sure we discussed it about the same thing. I think when Guru House came out, I remember.
Are you guys hearing something? Are you hearing a sound? I'm hearing a sound. That sound that I'm hearing is the fact that Spotify has something that Twitter and Clubhouse don't yet have. It's called an ad network, and it's not just any ad network, it's an audio ad network, meaning people who want to sell stuff and target people with their message can do that on Spotify. You've probably heard ads on Spotify, especially if you're not paying for Spotify Premium. You certainly are hearing ads on Spotify. And they're going to start adding that to podcasts. And what's amazing about that is podcasters, just like YouTubers, can now monetize their podcasts magically, instantly, with no effort at all. And in fact, they will beg to do so because you've probably no doubt heard of YouTubers complaining that they've been demonetized, meaning that YouTube's not allowing advertisers to show ads in their YouTube videos. And content creators get very, very, very angry when their videos are not allowed to show ads because now they can't make money from their content. Well, similarly, podcasters are going to be very angry when they are not allowed to run ads in their podcasts. Because the hardest part about doing a podcast is not doing the podcast. It's getting the sponsors to sponsor the podcast. So Spotify solves the monetization problem for content creators because they have an audio ad network, something Twitter itself does not have. Something Clubhouse, as of yet, does not yet have. So Spotify has it. It's done. It's robust. It's there. It's happening. It's live, baby. So you're, as a social audio room, when you change from room to room, somebody joins Tech News Around the World. As the room is loading, they listen to a 30-second ad, and I or whoever gets a piece of that pie, just like YouTube content creators get a piece of the money from the ads on their YouTube videos. That's huge for the content creators in their decision as to where they're going to spend their time doing their content. Are they going to go to the place where they don't make money, or go to the place where they make substantial amounts of money? It's a really tricky question. So, not to mention visibility. The Spotify visibilities will remain to be seen how much visibility people get. But if Spotify plays their cards correctly, they should be able to leverage the incredible, unprecedented, unimaginable roster of music and podcast creators they already have on their platform. They'll find a clever way to incentivize their current content creators to make social audio rooms. I'm very confident of that. So watch out. As predicted a year ago. So here it is. And by the way, it's going to get even crazier because they're going to add in the purchase while the content is going, the virtual concert or live podcast or whatever you want to call it. The creators will be able to sell virtual goods and real goods. Like I have this coffee here that I'm drinking. It's amazing. And I'm sitting here with my special guest, and don't you love this coffee? It's truly great, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely it is. You should buy it right now. Just click on the button on your screen and order this coffee right now, and you can have it too when you listen to us next week. Selling of of physical goods, selling of virtual goods, like virtual concert tickets, virtual whatever. The sky is the limit. As anything you can think of selling, physically or virtually, will be enabled in the very near future for podcasters and live audio, their version of social audio. So watch out. So if you think Spotify, just huge revenue potential there, ridiculous. The ad network will get even bigger because advertisers are going to want to be able to tap into that stuff. So the next story, shall we, is, well, let's read Spotify's tweet. Spotify says, Spotify Green Room is getting a new name. It's called Spotify Live, and a new home, which is inside of the app. There you go. The next one is a
So
Chicago-based...
Tyler,
Yes.
isn't Daniel Eck going to be calling you when he's ready to go? Because you've got one of the biggest rooms on Clubhouse.
We've chatted about it, and he said, bring it on over. That was the extent of the chat. It's possible I'm going to see him when I get back to Stockholm in less than a week. It's very likely, actually. So we'll see. We might be. I might even. I'll tell you more when next week. So the next one's from the Wall Street Journal. That the U.S. digital. Speaking of digital ads, because audio ads is just one color of the rainbow of the ad. There's visual ads, which are the dominant market. Spotify's kind of unique that they do audio ads, but the U.S. digital ad spend, like the amount of money that people spend on digital ads, has risen 35% year over year to $189 billion now, nearly $200 billion in 2021, the largest gain since 2006. What does that mean? That means each year, more and more, there's a total pool of money that people spend. That's the ad spend, money that companies spend on ads. More and more of that money every year is going digital for obvious reasons, because you can get analytics around digital ads in ways that you can't around running an ad on a billboard or in a newspaper or on a bus side of a bus. So digital ads have advantages, and that's why the digital ad market's growing. This year, it grew faster than any previous year. And why is that? Well, that's because your device screens are now big enough that advertisers are happy to do that, and there's all other. The analytics are improving, the targeting's improving, everything is improving, and it will continue to eat away at the overall ad spend. The next from the
And
Washington
Tyler, let me point out that the highlight of that, even
Post.
though I don't know if it was considered digital or TV ad at that point, was during the Super Bowl. I forgot who did it, but somebody who was a sponsor decided rather than running a traditional TV commercial, they just put up a QR code on the screen. Okay, and then people just downloaded the QR code from the TV screen. I forgot the advertiser, but it was like on the Super Bowl this year.
Crypto.
Coinbase.
Coinbase, yeah.
Okay. Over 14,000 Etsy sellers start a week-long strike over an increase in transaction fees from 5% to 6.5%. Grievances with Etsy's offsite ads program and more. Wow, that's some feisty Etsy sellers. Over 1.5%. Wow. Mark Andreessen, one of the two big bosses over at Andreessen Horowitz, has tweeted about 350 times in the past 2 weeks, often referring to the current thing meme, joined by Elon Musk and others. Netflix is rolling out a double thumbs up rating option, which will appear next to the thumbs up, thumbs down buttons to let it refine content recommendations. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Elon Musk appears to have deleted some tweets critical of Twitter and its leadership. Musk liked a tweet saying that he was told to play nice, and we covered that one yesterday. So those are your big, boring corporate media headlines for today. And now we get to go into the tweets, as we always do. And the first tweet I have today is from Matt Hughes, that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, will start testing money-making tools for its metaverse. And we covered that. That was one of the top stories of the day. Facebook owner Meta is beginning to test commerce tools for selling digital assets within its virtual reality social platform called Horizon Worlds. Evan found this one from Yahoo Finance, that Elon Musk's not-so-secret weapon is an army of Twitter bots touting Tesla. Elon Musk and Tesla have millions of vocal fans on Twitter. Not all of them are real. Two researchers are trying to figure out who controls the bots. That's an interesting hot take I had not heard of previously. Well, thank you for that one, Evan. The next is from BB from Nikkei Japan, that Meta and Google and others are pour $925 million into decarbonization. We did that. Was also one of the big stories. 5 North American tech groups to build a similar framework to the vaccine development in the way of trying to decarbonize. And we covered that. So the next one's from Katarina. That there's a new way to protect good gut bacteria from antibiotics. Well, that would be helpful. a new genetically engineered bacterium could shield the gut microbiome from the negative effects of antibiotics without enhancing antibiotic resistance. Genetically engineered probiotic protects the gut microbiome and reduces likelihood of antibiotic resistance spreading. So genetically engineered bacteria. And this is the craziest one we've seen in a while. From, I believe it was Jason sent this one in. According to Pentagon documents, several witnesses had sexual encounters with UFOs, which left one of those people pregnant. The possibility of extraterrestrial life. Now, that's the weird part. Is what is this child going to look like?
Was
The,
the
poss-
person on shrooms?
the possibility of
Elon Musk.
the possibility of extraterrestrial life has always piqued our interest. Is mankind alone in the universe? The latest development will only add more spice to the subject. Several witnesses have alleged to have had sexual encounters with a UFO, with one woman going as far as to claim that she was pregnant afterwards. The stunning revelations came after the English newspaper The Sun. So I don't even, I'm not even English, and I know that is probably to be taken with
Absolute tripe.
a huge grain of salt, a lethal dose of salt. Obtained documents from U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency as part of a huge Freedom of Information request. The bizarre claim was among several more outlandish ones that featured in Pentagon report. Others include descriptions of apparent abduction, unaccounted for pregnancy, sexual encounters, and the experience of telepathy and perceived teleportation. The report, titled Anomalous Acute and Subacute Field Effects on Humans and Biological Tissues, details investigations into human observers by anomalous advanced aerospace systems. Remarkably, the report states that there have been 5 reported sexual encounters between UFOs and humans. The report also states that the UFO sightings can leave witnesses injured. The injuries were allegedly caused by electromagnetic radiation from supposed energy-related propulsion systems. And none other than Eric, was it Eric Weinstein or his brother, who made the point that there was people that were apparently had some kind of internal injuries that were hard to fake, that were, and also hard to account for, that seemed to be of some kind of magnetic effects. It was weird. Anyway,
It's
that's
funny you're saying that. You just reminded me, Tyler. I saw in someone's comment a few days ago about a documentary, I think it's on YouTube or something, called I Know What I Saw. And it talks about this stuff. So you just reminded me, I'm going to go watch that tonight.
I think
Apparently, a
that
third
also.
of apparently a third
Go
of the
ahead.
U.S. population believe in UFOs, which just says a few things.
Yeah, but Ben, I think that explains Congress, right?
I think it explains a lot of things. I feel settled.
okay.
And the other thing is, if I'm an alien, how would I know you would view my probing as a sexual encounter? I'm just probing.
Wikipedia.
Okay. Next up from Pat from the Guardian. At number 10, that's slang for the Prime Minister's office there in the UK, because the address is 10 Downing Street. So number 10 condemns guerrilla tactics of Just Stop Oil blocking fuel deliveries. Quote, we're doing this because our government is refusing to act on the climate crisis, and we need to have a meaningful statement that we will have no new fossil fuel projects. It's that simple. Shortages at filling stations reported as campaign obstructs deliveries from fuel terminals in England. Now, this, by the way, is also a prediction that I made long before tech news to many of my personal friends, including to Peter Carlson at Northvolt. Well, when he was starting Northvolt, I remember predicting at a Starbucks in Stockholm that we would start to see environmental militias who will soon be getting funded through DAOs and the likes to carry out these hijinks. and stop and act in what they believe is their self-interest and the planet's best interest, all of our collective best interest, to reduce CO2 by any means possible. And
And the
that,
funny thing is,
hmm,
sorry, Tyler. The funny thing is that it's not just people who may be contrary and prone to some level of agitation, stroke violence, but you have doctors, lawyers, scientists who are also joining in these acts of participation. And yeah, so good on them. I think it's important. We're all going in that direction that you get so frustrated. There's nothing you feel you can do but take a stand. And there we are.
mhm. Okay. Next one is kind of related. It's from Dr. Fran. Via Mashable, that drones drop hundreds of thousands of seeds, return to nature budding forests at a rate of 100,000 seeds per day. A project called Flash Forest, I love that name, aims to reach 1 billion seeds planted by 2028. And this is the concept that I and Chris Fornoff were back channeling about, of how to cover the planet in bamboo to draw down CO2 in the atmosphere. Because rather than growing trees, which grow rather slow in comparison to bamboo, which grows incredibly fast in comparison. And we worked out a lot of the logistics. In fact, he had before we even discussed it. And we went quite deep into it. It seems very feasible. It even could be potentially lucrative. Not that that matters. The objective, though, is to, if you could plant enough bamboo seed, or by the way, hemp seed could also be a suitable replacement, and that would change the geographical boundaries. It would increase them, actually, because there's many places you can grow hemp that you can't grow bamboo on the planet. Bamboo need to be relatively close in the bamboo belt, close to the equator. Hemp can go far higher north and south. So, but you need an area, and both hemp and bamboo both grow incredibly fast. Apparently, hemp does draw down a bit more CO2 than bamboo. They have trade-offs, some pluses and minuses. But you would need an area about the size of America on the planet, cumulatively in total, to draw down all of the CO2.
Tyler, Chris is here.
Yes.
Isn't bamboo hard to get rid of though once it's there?
Some there's hundreds
Possible?
there's hundreds of types of bamboo, and some are uh, yeah, become a bit of a problem, yeah.
But some of them also help with erosion, land erosion, so you can probably repurpose them.
And by the way, lots of bamboo provide shade to the ground, in addition to drawing down CO2, also cool the surface of the earth due to shade, and enable other things to grow under them that otherwise wouldn't be able to grow on ground that was unshaded. So there's multiplier effects
So
potentially.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the species of bamboo that's hard to get rid of, if you were to like plant the size of America on Russia, would that be considered an act of war?
I'd say so. Oh no, actually, I love bamboo, so it would be an act of
Invasive,
kindness for me, but they'd probably take it differently.
an invasive species of bamboo. Um, I don't know. I mean, you would have to do it in their airspace. Um,
You're
Oh,
doing
drones
something
could
good
go
for the
in
world
far.
in a couple of ways.
what if we could get airline crew members on board this project and use unutilized where by the way, for those who don't know, like Ben, can you confirm that large international aircraft like uh, 777, 737, 747, they drop their urine waste in the air and it vaporizes?
No,
No.
no, no. That goes into a tank.
Okay, and they don't
Yeah,
release
we
those
don't want
things.
it. we don't want to give any more fuel to the what do you call those vapor trail conspiracists who
Okay.
don't
Is
understand evaporation or condensation. But yeah, you don't want to give them any more fuel.
is there
I'm
any
not aware of any aircraft that drop their urine. I'm
okay?
pretty sure it all goes into holding tanks.
Is there any way to drop seeds from commercial airliners?
Sure, you could make a device to do that. Absolutely, but just yeah, I mean, you would have to pass a bunch of safety shit because seeds could accumulate on the tail fin or something and cause stalls or problems. But you could easily pick a place on the aircraft, probably near, at the rear, underneath, at the bottom, somewhere near the tail strike, something like that, where that you could very safely disperse stuff out of it. Yeah.
Because rather than using drones, we could use commercial airliners who are flying every day anyways. Maybe they don't even need to be passenger ones. They could be like your DHL, FedEx type delivery.
But they need to be flying over the right place. I think the
Right.
Russians have become a bit suspicious.
It's pretty cold at 40,000 feet altitude. I don't know what the impact would be, but I suspect there are better methods than commercial flights.
Well, the main thing would be the jet streams. You drop it in a jet stream, it's going to land in a different continent to the one you expect. So, yeah.
Lots of issues at that altitude. I think lower altitude drones or small aircraft are probably going to be more effective, more efficient than commercial.
Right. So, Chris Fornoff, welcome back. We just read the article from Mashable that says drones drop hundreds of thousands of seeds and return to nature budding forests at a rate of 100,000 seeds dropped per day. Something called Flash Forest aims to reach 1 billion seeds planted by 2028. I'm concerned that they're not dropping the right type of seeds. And that using drones would be vastly inefficient, that there should be a way to harness the already traveling commercial planes or air traffic that exists in some capacity. That we could get the companies, although that's the tricky part, is this legalities of dropping seeds from commercial planes.
So I looked into this a little bit more since we last talked. And by the way, I apologize for my voice. It's covering from some sickness here. But there's actually, I looked into this more after one of our prior tech newsrooms. And I was like, here's bamboo. We can fix the world with this. I looked into the legality part specifically more and was a little confused as why the higher altitude stuff wasn't more covered, because it seems really obvious that this thing has been tried before. I couldn't quite find the right information on it. I ended up finding out there was actually a huge number of studies on this done in the 40s and 50s. It's just that they were done under biowarfare programs. Um, Spreading biological materials over large amounts of land is actually something that's been extremely well studied. It's just the thing that most of it's still classified and out of the public domain. It works. It's effective. When you go up to high altitude, it takes a surprisingly small amount of material to distribute to literally over every single surface of land. They're like 1,000 to 10,000 times cheaper than a nuclear weapon for equivalent amount of damage. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is that when you start talking about bamboo seed, most of these programs were considered under military applications, so you spread like anthrax or smallpox or horrifying things like that. The thing is that it was out of scope for them to consider the helpful applications of how to help people and do happy things with it. So there's this strange deficit of public knowledge around things that are very obvious on this, where you need to start looking at it as how do we take research and stuff that's already been done in a dark context, and how do you put it more in the light where you can use it happily? Now, when you're looking at the legal implications, there's a lot of things that were set up during the airlines during the era when we set up the FAA and such, and a lot of them were based around these ideas of the military handing off a military transportation infrastructure to the civilians, and a lot of the laws were crafted with that in mind. So whether or not your airspace is protected, whether or not shut down, whether or not you're allowed to fly over areas, what you're allowed to do with it, etc., it does have its fundamental underpinning some of these original ideas. One last thing to throw in there is that yeah, when I was looking at the legality of throwing things out of the back of the airplanes, it's actually somewhat hilarious. It's actually explicitly covered that you can throw almost anything you want at the back of an airplane according to FAA regulations, because originally it was mail. The one exception is you're not supposed to throw out flechettes or things that are designed to penetrate the ground. So you can't throw out, like, daggers that are designed to, like, just, as long as it's not explicitly a weapon, you can throw whatever you want out the back, because they had mail delivery as one of the earliest patrons of the Air Force and a lot of the domestic mail carriers and such. So it's actually somewhat entertaining. We export those laws internationally, and it is still explicitly legal to throw almost anything you want at the back of an airplane, just so long as it's not a weapon. Uh, the one hang up here, which is a little counterintuitive, there's something called MROs, which are essentially how they repair the airplanes and keep them maintained. Most airlines do not actually own their planes; they lease them, or you look up something called a dry lease or a wet lease, and they lease them from these centralized companies. Those central companies are almost entirely owned by the insurance industry. One of the reasons why you hear so much about airlines are safer than driving a car and such is because the insurance companies are the ones that actually own the industry. They're fine having other people slap their logos and brands on the top, but it's the insurance companies that own the physical planes. The reason why this is relevant is that they haven't allowed design changes for decades on the overall architectures, and part of that's because it keeps their actuarial tables very nice and clean. Now, when you repair a plane or you make a modification to it, or you change a design component, you literally have to recertify everything from day zero. So what they do is they prolong the maintenance and any alterations to the plane for as long as possible. Most likely call an MRO like an A round, a B round, a C round, a D round, and they try to save all of the upgrades to the plane to the last possible moment. That includes putting things like Wi-Fi dishes and stuff on the top of the airplane to talk to satellites and such. Um, so that's the most recent upgrade that they've had to those. But every time you see like upgrades and something goes wrong, like, oh no, we moved the turbines and now the planes are prone to damage and stuff. It's like it makes them even more skittery. So you can use the airlines. There is enough space, there's enough room, and everything else. But you're going to run into some bizarre legal barriers. And when you try to actually look at the research around how to spraying biological material, you're going to find some really old secret treaties between different countries about what you're actually allowed to do with these things. And so, yeah, anyways, that's a long rant. But yes, the plan will work. It's just a matter of there's a lot of things that aren't public on this that make it a little tricky to navigate.
Okay. What else? We got. Thank you for that, Chris. More tweets. One from Katerina. People with vision impairments are up to 4 times more likely to suffer mental health problems. People who suffer
Yay.
from visual impairments or blindness by age 50 are 4 times more likely to report mental health problems, including anxiety and depression. What the hell's up with that? Let's find out. That sounds like fantastic dinner party chatter. Research by International Development Organization, University of Ilorin, and the Kogi State Ministry of Health in Nigeria have revealed links between vision impairment and poor mental health. The study, published in the Royal Science of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene's International Health, estimates that blind people age 50 years and over are nearly 4 times as likely to have self-reported symptoms of anxiety and depression than those with no vision impairment. Individuals with severe vision impairment are almost 3 times as likely, and those with moderate visual impairment twice as likely. So, obviously, the more impaired the vision, the more likely you are to have suffer from anxiety and depression. The study used a statistical model. Quote, it's important for governments and organizations to be aware that people with vision impairments may be more likely to have additional mental health needs and design health services to be sensitive to this. Improving vision through targeted policies and integration of inclusive eye health services into national health and education systems will improve independence, productivity, and well-being. Findings also show the need for further research to understand the knock-on effects of sight loss on mental health. There you go. So now you can impress the folks at your next dinner party with that tidbit. So the next one is from
Tyler, just briefly
yeah,
on that, you said
yeah.
obviously when you said the more visually impaired you are, the worse it gets. You said obviously kind of naturally, but the slightly deeper thing there is that being that there's what you'd probably call a dose response relationship does indicate something real's going on. So, yeah, it does underscore that there's some mechanism there. The idea that the more, the worse. Because not all things are like that. Sometimes it could be a step change, or sometimes it could be no effect up to a certain threshold. So, yeah, very interesting.
Okay. The next one is from Evan. And the headlines, and I'm retweeting it now, as we do with all these, to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. It says Russia blocks GPS from U.S. satellites, including those used by private pilots in Sweden and Finland, according to the Pentagon. Sweden and Finland have been rushing to ensure they're affiliated with NATO as Russia's attacks on Ukraine continues. It was reported by NBC News on Monday. Indeed, that was one of the...
GPS has many advantages, but it was never designed to be unjammable because it was primarily designed for ICBM targeting originally. And the thing is, an ICBM that's that high up can talk directly to the satellite. When you're close to the ground, it's a lot easier to put something in between you and the satellite. So, the very large number of American military weapons systems have the same vulnerability to GPS jamming, and they have to take somewhat extraordinary electromagnetic warfare upgrades in order to maintain communications and precision targeting and tracking links.
Okay. Next up is from Poppy that impulsive psychopaths like crypto. Research shows how dark personality traits affect Bitcoin enthusiasm. Narcissism and belief in conspiracy theories may be among the factors that motivate people to buy cryptocurrencies, Ben.
Oh
Warren
dear,
Buffett
the
paid for
light's
this.
been
He paid
shone
for
on
this
me.
study.
Exactly.
Apple is manufacturing iPhone 13s in India in a continued bid to better diversify production. That's what we
Now
call...
Modi's going to be thrilled about, yay, they make iPhones here. Which part is it? Is it like the case or is it the chips?
About in Shanghai right now, in Kunshan, all the lockdown, it's reported that all the Apple related, or like iPhones, Mac, uh, all the related factories now stopped manufacturing for at least 1 week. So you
Hey,
they find diversity.
hey Tyler, you remember those port jams that we were covering like a month or two ago in Lost Port of Los Angeles, and they're kind of quietly kind of disappeared? There's still some jams, it's not nearly that bad. If you look at those same marine traffic maps for Shanghai right now, it is astounding. It's like 8 or 10 times as many boats just stacked up on top of each other, waiting there just for things that the boats aren't leaving because they just aren't loading the cargo. It's a quite spectacular look on the maps. It's like watching a cluster frac in real time.
Mm-hmm. And that takes us to the end of today's tweets. I'll leave you with this one. Wooden skyscrapers are on the rise. Architects and builders turn to mass timber, an engineered wood product similar in strength to concrete and steel, to build multi-story buildings.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyler, you didn't cover a story, I believe, from what Cheryl told me, because I was in and out, of something I tweeted to you on one of your favorite companies.
Okay.
So there's a corporate restructuring thing on Shopify. You didn't cover that, I
We
guess.
did yesterday, the 10 for 1 and the CEO
Oh, you
share.
did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Okay.
10 for 1 stock split and special class of shares for the CEO to
Well,
give him.
yeah, that was the thing I wanted to point out. I mean, this whole thing with super voting shares, which I've
Yeah.
always had a problem with,
Yeah.
he's already got super voting shares. So
Yeah.
now he wants to get even, stronger ones. I mean, if I know you're a shareholder. I mean, you're a shareholder in that company. I just think that's a real negative. But anyway, okay.
Yep. Okay. There we go. Because we're basically at the end of the tweets. So we will do it again tomorrow. And hopefully we'll find out who is behind the shenanigans in Brooklyn, and keep the tweets coming. And thank you to everybody. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everybody.
Thank you.